I've spent years watching gardeners fight the same battles over and over, pulling the same plants, buying the same herbicides, losing the same ground every spring. The problem isn't effort. It's that they don't know how these 10 species actually move. Some spread underground through root networks you can't see. Some throw seeds dozens of feet. Some clone themselves from a single broken stem. Once you know the mechanism behind each one, containment stops being a losing fight and starts being something you can actually plan for before they hit the soil. Number 1, bamboo. Picture a homeowner who dug out a full bamboo grove 3 years ago, and they're still pulling new shoots today, a full 40 feet from where the original plant stood. No one replanted anything. So how does a plant move that far on its own? Most people assume bamboo spreads cane by cane above ground where you can see it. It doesn't. Running bamboo species push out horizontal underground stems called rhizomes, and those rhizomes move through soil that looks completely undisturbed on the surface. By the time a new shoot appears, the rhizome network underneath it is already weeks ahead of where you're looking. There are 2 types of bamboo worth knowing. Clumping bamboo stays relatively tight to its origin point. Running bamboo, which is what most people accidentally buy because it's cheaper and faster growing, is the one that travels, pushing rhizomes under driveways, through fence footings, and across property lines without needing a gap to do it. The biology here is actually straightforward. Bamboo is a grass, not a tree, and grasses evolved to spread sideways as a survival strategy. A single grove is really one organism sharing a connected root network, so cutting canes above ground does nothing to the rhizome system below. The plant just redirects its energy into the next shoot. Number 2, mint. Picture this. You plant 1 pot of spearmint near your kitchen door in spring, and by August it's pushing up through the cracks in your patio stones 6 feet away. That's not bad luck. That's stolons doing exactly what they evolved to do. Mint runs 2 spread systems at once. Above ground, horizontal stems called stolons creep along the soil surface and root wherever a node touches dirt. Below ground, rhizomes push through the top few inches of soil in every direction. So even if you pull every visible stem, the underground portion is already branching outward. A broken stem dropped on bare soil can root on its own, which means every cleanup session is a potential replanting. Number 3, dandelion. One dandelion plant produces up to 200 seeds per flower head, and a mature plant pushes out multiple flower heads per season. Each seed rides a pappus, a tiny parachute structure that keeps it airborne long enough to travel hundreds of feet on a light breeze. Now multiply that by every dandelion on your block. Most people focus on the seeds, but the real problem is the taproot, which can push 10 to 15 feet deep. Cut the plant at the surface and the root sends up new growth within days. Break the taproot during removal, and every fragment left behind grows a new plant. What separates dandelion from mint or bamboo is that the seeds arrive from outside your property entirely. So even a perfectly managed yard is one dry, windy afternoon away from starting over. Number 4, spider plant. Most people keep spider plants in a hanging basket indoors and never think twice about them. Put one outside in a warm climate, though, and the whole picture changes. The plant sends out long, arching stems called stolons, and at the tip of each one, it grows a fully formed baby plant, called a plantlet, that's already photosynthesizing before it touches soil. Once that tip makes contact with the ground, it roots and becomes a completely independent plant. The parent keeps producing more stolons. A healthy spider plant can push out dozens of plantlets in a single growing season, each one rooting in a wider radius around the original, and the parent never stops. Number 5, strawberry. Strawberries are one of the few plants people actually want to spread, at least at first. You put in a few crowns, they fruit, and then the runners start, and within 2 seasons, that tidy little row has become a dense mat covering twice the ground you planned for. The mechanism is straightforward. Each runner extends outward from the parent crown, and while the tip is still connected, the new plantlet gets a direct feed of water and nutrients from the parent plant until it's stable enough to root on its own. That's why runners establish so reliably. Commercial growers actually replace their beds every 3 to 4 years because the original crowns age out while the newest plants at the colony's edge stay most productive. Number 6, Creeping Jenny. Creeping Jenny, Lysimachia numularia, gets sold as a solution to bare spots, slopes, and wet areas where other plants won't go. And it works. It works so well that within a season or two, it's also covering the plants you actually wanted to keep. What makes it different from most spreaders is that every node along its trailing stems can root when it touches moist soil, not just the tips. So it doesn't move from one point to another. It fills in every square inch between those points at the same time. It tolerates shade, so it won't stop at the tree line. And that golden cultivar popular in containers? Same biology, different color. Number 7, Ivy. English ivy, Hedera helix, looks completely manageable when it's young. It hugs the ground, fills gaps, stays green all year, and most people leave it alone because it seems to be doing its job. Then one day you notice it's 30 feet up a tree trunk, and the tree's starting to fail. Ivy spreads in 2 phases. First, it creeps along the ground, rooting at nodes along its stems. Then, once it climbs high enough on a structure, it shifts into reproductive mode, producing berries that birds carry to new locations. So it spreads by rooting stems and by seed simultaneously. The aerial rootlets don't just grip bark. They secrete a bonding compound that physically penetrates surface cracks. And as the stem thickens, those rootlets expand the damage. On trees, the added weight strains branches, and the moisture trapped against the bark breeds fungal rot. Ivy's listed as invasive in more than a dozen US states, and in forest understory environments, it forms dense mats that block light from native seedlings. Because it stays green through winter while native plants go dormant, it competes for light year-round. Removing ivy from a tree means cutting the stem at the base and waiting for the vine above to die before pulling it off, because pulling live ivy tears the bark with it. Number 8, Lamb's Ear. Lamb's Ear, Stachys byzantina, gets recommended in almost every beginner garden guide. Drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, soft silver foliage that works anywhere. Nobody mentions that it also spreads by offsets and self-seeds aggressively. So within a few years, that one plant becomes a dense clump crowding out everything nearby. It runs 2 spread systems at once. Offsets push out from the base year by year, expanding the clump outward. Seed stalks drop seeds across any bare soil you've recently turned or weeded, and those seeds germinate fast. Those felt-like leaves covered in dense hairs let it thrive in dry, poor soil where most garden plants can't compete. So it colonizes gravel paths and dry slopes without any help from you. Number 9, Daylily. Daylilies, Hemerocallis, are one of the most planted perennials in North America because they're tough, cheap, and flower without much help. What most people don't realize is that the spread happens entirely underground. So by the time you notice the problem, the root mass is already unmanageable. The plant multiplies through fleshy underground roots that produce new crowns continuously, and a clump that's been sitting for 5 years can pack dozens of crowns into a space so dense you can't separate them cleanly. Any fragment you leave behind grows a new plant. Those fleshy roots store carbohydrates the same way they store drought reserves, so the plant regrows from pieces too small to notice when you're digging. Number 10, Aloe vera, the desert spreader that multiplies in silence. Aloe vera, Aloe barbadensis, is probably the last plant you'd expect on this list. It sits on windowsills, it barely seems to grow, and most people assume they're lucky just to keep it alive. But put one in the ground in a frost-free climate and that whole picture shifts fast. The spread mechanism is called pup production. The parent plant pushes out offsets from its base, and each pup draws water and nutrients directly from the parent's root system while it builds its own. Once it roots, it's fully independent, and the parent immediately starts producing more. What the data shows is that stress actually speeds this up. A root-bound aloe in a crowded pot produces pups faster than a plant with room to grow. Because crowding triggers a reproductive response, the plant evolved over millions of years of desert survival.